Hello, it's Lou Collins. Today I'm going to be playing with the new Papercraft Society box designed by Sheena. So Sheena has put together this fantastic collection of kind of arty goods that many of us may not have explored within our paper crafting before, but it's kind of giving us an introduction, and there's lots of tuition in here. So if you've ever loved the look of paints and watercolours, all those beautiful techniques that Sheena does, you've got everything in here to just give it a go, get started without any pressure. And a fantastic booklet included in here as well. So she's sort of guiding you through everything. Now, one of the two of the things I really love about this particular box is that you get, it's very unique actually, you get a colour chart here that you fill in yourself. So as you fill it in, you get a feel for the colour mixes, and we're basing the entire box on 3 colours, but you actually get lots more. But the other thing I love is the project booklet, because this is just taking you through so many different projects. Now, Sheena primarily actually makes cards, card making, as do her design team. So if you are usually a card maker, you've got everything in here to make lots of beautiful cards, but in a slightly different way to what you're used to. There is a full reveal of the box on our channel, so on YouTube, on Facebook and things, but I'm just going to create a card today that's different to anything that's in the booklet at the moment. This is kind of how I started playing with this book. The paints, or the inks rather, they're watercolor inks, and I just wanted to show you because it's a nice way, another way that you can get to grips with using watercolors. Now, included in the box there are these cards, which is where I took my first inspiration from. So all of these cards, they're not just pretty colours, they actually depict the sort of technique that you're creating when you follow the instructions on the back. So this lovely sort of, what are they calling this? The kitchen cling wrap technique. That's just beautiful, but shows you an example on one side, then tells you exactly how to do it on the other. So I've taken inspiration from these to create the card that I'm going to make. Now these are the inks, so we've got a yellow here. It actually looks orange in, I don't know if you can just see that, there we go, on the white. It looks orange in the bottle, or almost red, but it is a yellow when it's watered down. This one is a red, oh, it's a pink, it's like a magenta, and then you've also got your blue as well, a really lovely bright blue. So I've put, using the dropper provided, there's a couple of droppers in the box, I've put into, again, the palette provided, a couple of drops of each colour into my palette ready, but I've also got 3 other gaps in the palette, so I can mix these if I want to. With this technique, it's a really quick one actually. It makes very quick cards, but they look beautiful, and you can of course adjust the colours to be exactly as you want them. If you want this just greens and blues, you can do that by obviously mixing the blue and the yellow together to create a green, and so on and so forth. So I love the versatility you get with this range of colours. Now what I have added is my card base and my watercolour cardstock. There's lots of tags in here for you to get started practicing with, but I've brought in a larger sheet of watercolour cardstock to create a card base. Now when I do this, I tend to make the watercolour cardstock the same size exactly as my card base, because card bases tend to come in bright white, whereas watercolour tends to be an off-white. And if I was to mat and layer this onto my card and have a border, it would look a little bit odd. So I tend to just cut it completely to size and have a nice flawless clean edge to it instead. I've also got water, I've got a bit of kitchen towel, and that's really it. Of course I've got my ink, I've got a black ink. I'm using the VersaFine Clair because you can use this with watercolours, and I've got my stamping platform. So other than that, that's all I'm using. You will need something to roughly draw a circle around. Now this is your choice, you can draw a circle around or you can do it like me. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm just going to do a circle by hand, which is never easy, but we'll see how that goes. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to change my mind as soon as I've said that. I've just seen on my desk, I've got a roll of tape. It's nearly empty. So what I'm going to do is place this just into the middle of my watercolour. For now, I'm going to take the card base away. I'm just going to place this into the middle of my watercolour. I might bring it just to the side a little bit, so it's not central, using that rule of thirds that people often use within card making, and artists and that use it. So rather than the centre of the circle being in the middle, the centre of the circle is going to be about 1/3 of the way along the card base. Apparently 3s, odd numbers, are really pleasing to the eye, so the rule of thirds, it breaks things up for you and just makes it all more pleasing to look at, apparently. So let's just delve for, I really need a pencil. Now you'd think a card maker, a crafter would easily have a pencil to hand, but apparently not always. But never mind, found one now. So just get those little bits of fluff or something off of there, put that back, and I'm just very, very lightly, extremely lightly going to draw a circle around this roll of tape. Okay. Now the beauty is, once you put watercolour onto watercolour paper, once it's dry, you can sometimes go back in, and depending on the quality of the inks and such, you can actually still erase those pencil lines afterwards. So if you do go a little bit hard, don't worry too much, you can always go back over. So I'm just going to break this circle up a little bit with a few dashed lines of my eraser, just so it's as pale as it can possibly be. There we go. So I can still see it, but it's not too dark. So now I need to mix my paints. I've got some clean water here, and I've got the brush that was provided. So I'm going to load up the brush with lots of water and just squeeze that water off into the ink to start with. So just a couple of times, and you start to see that colour, a beautiful pink colour coming through. Clean my brush off and squeeze some more water into this one. So they're extremely, extremely concentrated inks, really, really bright, really beautiful. There's the yellow, and then we've got the blue as well. So let's do that, another couple of droplets of water. Okay, so we've got, you can see our watercolour is a little more fluid now. I'm going to leave those for a moment. I'm not going to mix them or anything. I can do that when I pick the paint up. So now again, clean my brush off, make sure my water's not too dirty from what I've just done. I shouldn't have really touched the paints too much at all with my paintbrush there. And I'm going to really load this up with water, and I'm going to bring it over to my circle, and I'm going to squish some water off into the middle of the circle, and I'm going to start brushing it round in a circle. Now this is clean water, so it's not much fun for you to sit and watch me do. You can usually see, as you do this, you can usually see the shine of the water on your cardstock or your paper, so it's easy to see where you've already wet. But we are saturating the inside of that circle as best you can. Now when you start laying colour into this, you're really going to be able to see exactly where you put the water, so you can then add some more if you have missed a spot. But if you go around the edge with the flat part of your brush, which makes it a nice neat circle, and then just fill everything in, making sure. So there's a nice pool of water over there. I don't know if I can just, I don't think I can quite capture the light on there. Trust me, there's water on there. Okay, so now again, dampen my brush off, make sure it's nice and clean, but not dripping at the moment. I'm going to use all three colours. I'm going to make this really bright. So let's start with the magenta colour. I'm going to just dip that in, and I'm going to come over to the edge and dip that. Look at that. Look at that spread, isn't it beautiful? So I'm just applying the magenta around the edge here of the water, and it's just bleeding into the water. Now what I want to do is apply this to just less than a third of that circle. Okay, then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to wet my brush, I'm going to dip that into the next colour, and I'm going to start placing this along another third of the circle, just about joining the pink. Now I'm not at the moment allowing any of this to I'm not purposely blending it with my brush. I'm just letting everything fall into itself almost and find its own way. And then the blue, I'm just going to come along here again with the blue the same way as I did the others, really just touching the water with that ink. You might need to sometimes add a little bit more. Now I just had to have a little break from filming, so what I've done so far with you has kind of dried on there, but that's fine, because the great thing about these inks, which I think is fabulous, is you can reinvigorate them and you can kind of almost start again. So they've dried in my palette while I was away, and they've also dried on the paper. So I'm going to re-wet the paper. Now we can get some fantastic layering techniques from this as well. So just dampening everything down. You can see already it's starting to react with those colours in there and bring some of that colour into the centre. Then I'm going to just add a few more drops of water with my brush to each of the colours. Now we were working on the blue, so I'm going to come back to the blue I'm going to start again. Now this is only going to deepen the colour as well. It's going to make it really lovely, bright, vibrant blue here, and I'm going to bring it more into the centre. Again, I'm still not going to be overworking it. I'm going to let the colour do its own thing. There's the yellow, so I want to brighten up. It's sort of an orange. If you put it on extremely pale, it's then a yellow. Bring that a bit more into the centre as well. And then again, a touch more with the pink too. The blue kind of ran into the pink quite a lot there. So I'm just going to highlight that pink a bit more, or the magenta colour. And again, just dab that in here. If you want to add a little more water, just plain water there into the centre, you can do. And then at this stage, it's a good idea to just let that dry on its own. Now, whether you want to go ahead and heat dry it, you can do. You'll get some kind of watermarks with that, almost tide marks. I'm just going to lift up with a kitchen towel here where the yellow and the blue are mixing a bit further than I want them to, and the same with the pink. Now I don't mind the mixing, of course, that's what we want to happen, but I still want to keep 3 clear colours there. So now I can air dry that. That's the best way for keeping it exactly as it is. But if you heat dry it, you're moving the ink around and drying the edges, and you will get darker lines in it. It depends on the look you prefer, but I'm going to allow mine to just air dry for a little while before we go on to the next stage. So now that's dried, you can see that the colour has slightly toned down. One thing I am going to do, which I should have done earlier, is pick a colour. Pick a colour that I want to kind of almost highlight, and for me it's going to be the blue, and I'm going to water down that blue into a separate palette, and then I'm just going to flick a few bits of it around. Not a lot, just enough to bring the colour out slightly. Again, air dry, or for this one, because it's only small blobs, you can actually use your heat tool and heat set that. Now I'm going to go into the wallet here, and I'm going to look at those gorgeous stamps. Now these are like scene stamps, which I love. I think I'm going to do something really quite contemporary, quite simple, but nice and effective. So I'm going to use, I was going to use that one. I think I'm going to use the line of trees. It's going to be a happy retirement. So I've got the line of trees there that is going to sit just along the base of that really bright colour. We've also got a flock of birds here, which I think is lovely. I'm going to incorporate those just on the edge of the circle of colour. So just laying the clear stamps down. Let's just move our ink out the way for now. I think we are done with the ink, so I could put that away so as not to spill any and clean it up. But I don't know if you're like me, once you're crafting, you get going, and you don't want to be tidying up during, do you? So just making sure that everything's where it should be by picking it up with my stamping platform. I'm going to use a nice black ink. So this is my VersaFine Clair. This works really well. So if you've still got any wet areas on your paper, this is still going to not react with it. So you'll still get a nice clear impression. So that's the reason for choosing this one. Now I'm working on a watercolour paper, a watercolour cardstock, which has a lot of texture. So I need to make sure I'm really pressing down into that texture. Now that looks lovely anyway, but I am going to add one more layer of black ink just in case there's any textured pieces that haven't quite managed to touch the stamp. And I'm going to use my spot pressure, so use my thumbs and apply really concentrated pressure over every part of the stamp to make sure that textured cardstock is well and truly covered with the ink where I want it to. There we go, beautiful. Now taking these stamps away, there's one, there's two. I'm just going to add a little happy retirement sentiment to this as well. I'm going to pop that up here, there, just to balance everything out. I'm actually going to bring it over a little. So we've got a bit of white space over here. We've got those little blue splats as well, which kind of fill the white spaces slightly, very subtly. And then we'll have the happy retirement sentiment up here too, almost as if the birds are kind of flying towards it. There we go, only needed to do one impression with that one. There we go. So simple card, lots and lots of colour, something that even if you are a beginner, you could have a go at. Let's just map this onto our cardstock. As you can see, I'll glue that onto my cardstock completely, so it's one complete card rather than having that border. As you can see, if I was to have a border around the edge, we've got the slight colour difference, so that is cut exactly to size. I love that. I love that great big splash of colour, but it's being kept within the circle, so it's still nice and neat. You've got all the lovely wicking and the blending of the colours in there. We've got a gorgeous coral sort of peachy colour around here. You've got the lighter colours in the middle, the silhouettes of the trees, the silhouettes of the birds. I just think it's really beautiful, but so simple and effective. So that's a quick card that I've made using Sheena's Papercraft Society box. If you're interested in getting your hands on this box, there's different price ranges depending on how you subscribe. If you subscribe now, between now and the, I believe it's the 20th of December, this will be the first box that you will receive on your subscription. It will come to you once a month. If you're in the UK, you get free delivery. There's lots and lots of other benefits as well. Go and check out the website. It's www.papercraftsociety.co.uk. You'll be able to see all the details there. But the boxes, for everything that's inside, I think it comes out, depending on the subscription term you choose, 3, 6 or 9, 12 months I believe it is. You can get them from as low as like £18 something per box, so amazing value. Lovely, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you like that card. I hope some of you will try this out using your Papercraft Society box as well, and I hope to see you again very soon with another project.